I wanted to just acknowledge Ibu Mehdi. I know has to leave. She's appearing on television, so I wanted to thank Ibu Mehdi for her attendance before she leaves.
I'm so sorry, Steve, and the whole audience, because I'm my slave. There is a limited schedule for me. I have got invitation for live in the CNBC channel right now. I'm joined with Pak Yonatan from AP3E. Just because the schedule is same with the Petromindo webinar, and then I'm so sorry to others. I was leaving from this webinar, but if anything would like to asking me, you can share with me. You can ask me. Do you have my number, and or my email, or ask to Petromindo. Thank you so much. Have a nice day and keep safe, everybody. See you, Steve.
Thank you, Ibu Mehdi. So now we've completed all of the presentations. I think we can go now to some of the questions. So I'll just open up. There's several questions relating to the 7 years of reserves remaining. So I wanted to address that now. I believe the 7 years refers to reserves only and excludes the resources. And I believe it's only for the high grade above 1.8%. So there's two ways that the 7 years could become longer. One is through doing more exploration work. And given what we know about the reserves and resources in Indonesia, that exploration work will definitely yield more reserves. And then the second thing is that once the high grade ore becomes limited, as Alex mentioned, smelters will have to start dropping the grades. So we'll see smelters start to accept 1.7, and then it'll keep going down. If you look back to 2014, I know, Alex, you could confirm this, but basically IMIP was only taking above 2% nickel. And so now it's already down to 1.8, and it will continue to drop in the future. The meaning of this is that operating costs will go up. So the cost of producing a ton of nickel will increase for smelters. But we don't have enough exploration data to know how long the reserves will last. The other questions, I'm just looking through here. So there's been a few questions about some of Ibu Mehdi's data regarding the international ore price, the domestic ore price, and the government benchmark price, and why there's such a big difference. So again, I can probably answer this. The big difference really is that in the international market, there's only limited ore available. And so because Indonesia does not export any ore anymore, the availability of laterite ore is so small that the price has gone up very high in the international market. Whereas in the domestic market, within Indonesia, there's, as Ibu Mehdi said, there's 290 miners able to supply ore, and there's only a handful of smelters. And so because of that balance between buyer and seller, the price in the domestic market is very low. So there's a huge difference between the international ore price and the domestic price, and that's basically a function of supply and demand.
Steve, would you activate your video, Pak?
Yes.
Thank you, Pak.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oops. Okay, I think my video's there. I'm going to open up for more questions. So I see some hands raised. But Julius, I'm opening up your mic now. But Julius, do you want to unmute and raise your question? Julius, are you there? You'll have to unmute, Pak. Julius?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Silakan Pak Julius. Are you there, Pak?
Pak Stephen.
Yes,
Ya.
go ahead, Pak.
Pak Stephen, banyak aturan-aturan yang ada di situ, Pak Stephen. Bagaimana bisa kita dapatkan kopi-kopiannya, Pak Stephen?
Peraturan pada umumnya ada di Google, Pak. Bisa dicari berdasarkan nomornya. Setiap kementerian memiliki database online, jadi harusnya bisa dicari secara online.
Tidak ada daftar sama Pak Stephen ya, Pak ya?
Oh, belum ada saya. Ya.
Belum ada, Pak ya?
Iya.
Cukup Pak Stephen.
Oke,
Pak Hengki Daulaya, please Pak.
Thank you. We will like to ask question to Pak Eko from ASDM. There will be 3 questions. First, we noticed from ASDM statement around 2 weeks ago mentioned that Indonesia has produced 15 million ton of nickel ore and 13 million ton ore consumed domestically, and the rest is export. Is that mean that ASDM say that there is an export ore happen in 2020? My first question, first question. The second question, if we take a look at in ASDM Modi production between NPI in NPI production and NPI export, there is huge gap. Meanwhile, if we're not mistaken, based on Pak Alexander Baru's statement, stainless steel smelter is not operated yet. So can ASDM explain why there is a huge gap between NPI production and NPI export? Our third question is that on HPM ASDM about the price or mechanism, is ASDM already done any research about the HPM on ore? Because IKI already doing some initial research that we found out the nickel ore in the Philippines sell for their own domestic only in $8 per metric ton for nickel laterite. Meanwhile, if we're doing the same ore to HPM equation, the price will be double. Have ASDM ever, how do ASDM come up with that equation? Thank you.
Oke. Pak Eko mungkin bisa menjawab, Pak.
Siap, Pak Steve. Terima kasih, Pak Steve. Jadi, mungkin saya jawab dalam bahasa Indonesia aja ya, Pak, ya, biar lebih jelas. Jadi begini, Pak. Saya mungkin izin share screen ya, Pak, ya, kalau boleh ya.
Siap, Pak.
Boleh nggak? Apa ya?
Boleh, Pak. Boleh, Pak.
Oke. As you can see on your screen, so all the participants can see the screen now. Is it okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I want to clarify about my previous data about the reserves that I mentioned before. It's 7 years. It's actually 7 years from 2022, because in our minister regulation, it said that in minister regulation number 25 of 2018, it is stated that the smelters must be built by the end of 2021. It means that in the beginning of 2022, there will be no export anymore. And since that, we calculated that the nickel proven reserves can only support for like 7 years from 2022. And if we calculate it from 2020, and we can support about 9.7 years in here. So how we can get that calculation? We retrieve the data from Geology Agency, the latest data from Geology Agency. which we have total reserves about 3.5 billion tons. And in here, if we calculate it with domestic production and also the input smelter capacity, the plan of smelter input capacity, therefore we calculated that we only can support from proven reserves here, cadangan terbukti, about 9.8 years. And if we calculate it from the total reserves, we can support approximately about 32 years from 2020. So we can, with current reserves condition, we can support until 2052. This is our source of data, how we can say about this life of span of nickel reserves. And the first question is about the nickel export. Our assumption here, 50 million tons, which is we took the data from the assumption from nickel input capacity, existing nickel input smelters capacity. So these numbers were taken from the existing nickel smelters capacity and also for the smelters that have planned that will be operated in 2020. Therefore, our nickel export is still prohibited by our Minister Regulation number 11 of 2020. So there are no more nickel ore exports to another countries since January 1st, 2020. That's for the first question. And the second one about our mineral reference price, harga patokan mineral, HPM. The formula were carefully calculated, involved various stakeholders, including academies, including the miners, the smelters at the time, and we started to work on this thing since I believe it was started in 2014, I guess. So it took a very long road to determine the formula. We also involved the academici and also another stakeholders from another ministry and also government bodies in Indonesia. And we have several options at that time. We had several options, and then we tried to calculate these various options to reflect which one is more reliable to be used as our formula for our reference price. And therefore, the formula that we decided to calculate the mineral reference price has already been studied for a long time, and which also involve various stakeholders from all the sectors. And we believe that this formula is the most viable to be used for all stakeholders, for the miners and also for the smelters. So we already calculated the profit comparison between the miners and also the smelter companies, and we found that if we use this reference price formula, the miners will get around 52% of profit. 52% portion of the profit, while the smelters will get 48% of profit. So it will be the best option to determine, to provide the fairness principle. That's the first thing. And the second thing is we believe, we also realize that this formula, our reference price, is below the international price. Bu Meidi already showed the graph, the figure that shows that our HPM price is below the international price. We already recognize that thing because we want to provide also the fairness to smelter companies. If we put the reference price too high, the smelter companies will gain less profit, but it will be more profit for the miners. So for that reason, we took the middle part of it. So we set the corrective factor a little bit lower than the international price, so we can give the fairness principle for all the stakeholders, including miners and also the smelters. Maybe that's all, Pak Steve. Thank you.
Thank you. Saya mungkin menambahkan sedikit, jadi kenapa ada
Okay.
perbedaan produksi NPI dan jumlah ekspor NPI, itu karena memang sudah ada ini stainless steel production dalam negeri. Jadi sebagian dari produksi NPI ini diserap oleh pabrik stainless. Kemudian untuk pasar biji di Filipina, kenapa harganya sangat rendah itu karena yang dijual di dalam negeri di Filipina itu limonite, bukan saprolit. Jadi saprolit mendapatkan harga yang tinggi di pasar internasional, sementara limonite ini digunakan untuk HPAL. Jadi ini harganya akan sangat jauh lebih rendah untuk limonite dibandingkan saprolit.
Okay, Pak. This is our comment because you also make your comment. What we trying to say that it's when SDM make the price for limonite, already said that limonite also. When SDM make the limonite price, when the SDM set the HPM, it will make the limonite price increasing significantly compared to Philippine ore price. Compared to what the nickel mines in Philippines sold their ore to their own smelter, it's only $8. Meanwhile, if we make HPM in the same ore, the cost will be around $16 per ton, which is double. I believe that's why I believe it is the same ore. We're talking about the same ore. I believe that is why the nickel smelter is complaining about the HPM.
No, not really, but so the current issue.
No, because I already saw that there was a lot of statement mentioned by ASDM comparing the export ore of Philippine ore with Indonesian ore. Now, why they don't try to make comparison between domestic ore in the Philippines with domestic ore in Indonesia? That is a fair comparison, right?
Not really. The issue is that in the Philippines, they're talking about limonite, and here we're talking about saprolite. So it's a different ore. So the government here is still studying the saprolite price. The limonite domestic ore price.
You're not getting the point, Pak. You're not getting the point. Let me say in Indonesia, ASDM statement, and also Ibu made a statement about nickel ore $16 per ton is based from the ore exported Philippines, right? Now they compare that with export ore in Indonesia. What they compare it with ore price in Indonesia. Meanwhile, ore price in the domestic Philippines only $8 per ton. Why not Indonesia make the same comparison with that?
Because it's a different type of ore. It's a different type of ore.
Okay.
It's a completely different type of ore. It's for a different market.
Okay, Pak.
Yeah.
Pak MS Marpaung, raise hand please, Pak MS. Pak Steve bentar ya, Pak.
Iya, silakan, Pak.
Oh, saya nggak kebagian. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to contribute for this our webinar. First of all, I would like to talk a bit about the minimum ore grade. Yeah. With a friend, I've been open a nickel mine in Haltim. Yeah, very small, but we are suffer at that time since we are the Indonesian government banned for the export. Yeah, it's only about 600 hectare, but then we found out only 300 hectare that contain good nickel. What I mean good nickel is that we only able at that time to export about 2 ship, yeah, vessel, but then it's both banned, and suddenly then we have to sell it to the Singsan. And it was the time, I think, is they only accept 1.9%. But from my experience, and this is very important to the government side, what happened at that time is that if the nickel only they accept 1.8, then normally in the mine site operation, less than 0.8% nickel become overburdened. They just throw it away to the valley, become overburdened, no value at all. Because none of the mining put it in a special place, yeah. because it will cost for them to transport it to a special place without able to sell it. So there will be another burdening cost. Then they don't do this allocation like what we have before we one mines, gold mines, the low grade, they put it in a special place. But in terms of nickel mining, they just throw it away to the valley. Yeah. So then no more conservation. So I ask and I urge the smelter company to consider as soon as possible can also to accommodate this nickel ore that lower than 1.8% of grade, yeah, in order to minimize of wasting our ore. And the other thing is that for what the presentation have been given us all the information and data, it seems to me that now we already all the smelter within the country, the Indonesian smelter, at least they already consume around 60 million tons of ore, nickel ore, yeah, which is more or less the same like what we have done in 2009, yeah. We export at that time is also around 62 million tons. Considering the profit margin they get from for the smelter side, I may believe that it might be that the payback, they already get it, the payback already in 2 years of time, yeah, with such a big of profit margin. So what I'm trying to urge is to Alex is that what we need within this country is the sharing of profit secara what do you call it, berkeadilan, yeah. I don't know how to say it in English, yeah, but it also might be better to say it in Bahasa. How to share the profit secara berkeadilan, right away start from the mining up to the final user, yeah, up to the final user of this product, yeah, because based on the profit, the information given before in some of the graph, I see quite big portion of profit, yeah, but we don't share it equally among all these activities, yeah. And what happened at that time when we send our sea sand to Singapore? At that time, I argue with them is that the profit share is not fair at that time. Yeah, in Singapore, when it's become already dry land, they sell it very expensive. But the whole sand product to make it a meter square of land in Singapore, they come in from Indonesia, but they don't share the profit secara berkeadilan. So that's the thing that might be need to be considered later on. Yeah. The other thing is that about the harga HBA in coal and HPM in mineral. These two kind of items are totally different. When it's come to HBA, at that time is because they claim to the government that the price of coal is very low. Yeah. So the government said, I don't care whether you sell it low, but for us, we have a certain price, then we will charge you the PNBP, yeah, based on the price that the government already set. But in this case, the HPM is that to make the share of profit more equal. So I suggest if there is any possibility that this smelter side consider that the HPM is too high, yeah, because the HPM might be considered the price of international when Steve said that the price of international ore is because of the availability of ore internationally are very small. And this is not fair to take this price to become part of the consideration for the HPM. So might be we have to talk again how to formalize the HPM. So then we will get the HPM, then ask the government to enforce this. So then we will have a good and berkeadilan di dalam when it's in our production of nickel ore. Thank you for giving me the chance, yeah. Because
thank you.
Another thing is that I remember what happened to our PLTA Sigura-Gura and the bauxite aluminum, yeah. For many years, I have complained to them that I think for around 30 years, they always The Japanese always claim that they make loss of that, yeah. But then once we occupy it and we take over that, and we can still make money. One of the tin smelter owned by PMA also in Bangka also claimed to the government they lost, yeah. But they still export the tin at that time. So don't, please, this kind of stupidity, we have to finish it. We have to stop it, yeah. Please, let's talk in, open a table and talk it fairly and take all, put all the data on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Marpaung. We have up until 4 p.m. to continue, but I'll allow Pak Alex maybe can respond to Pak Marpaung. Alex.
Alex suaranya Pak.
Pak Alex masih mute.
Mute. Is it okay?
Oke. Iya, silakan Pak.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Pak Marpaung. Yeah, long time already, since you retired. We haven't met yet. Response to the what is the brief inquiries of Pak Marpaung, I would say like this. First, about the last statement that the price of benchmark. I totally agree with him. Totally agree. Yeah, we have to sit together with good intention, and then share the cake proportionally. Okay. Okay. Proportionally. Why? Pak Marpaung, you can imagine when we build SMI, Sulawesi Mining, we have to build road, oxygen plant, we have to build port, we have to build housing, we have to also build power plant. So not only investment in a smelter, but power plant we have to build. In Morowali, Morowali was nothing there. So if you calculate the investment, double than what we compare to if you do it in Java. Because all three things we have to build ourselves. Doesn't mean that I justified about the profit. We are not talking about profit. We are talking about, let's say, payback period. Then afterwards, we are talking profit, right? So this is a proportionality. So I agree with you. Let's sit together. What's the best for all parties? But if you say the profit there, 42%, here 48%, but you have to calculate also investment involved producing that. Not only the profit you see, but see also the investment. That will be fair. So I think that's what I would like to say. Don't misunderstand about the smelter. I am Indonesian. I know exactly what we are doing. That's the reason why I really, in the beginning, wanted to build Polytech in Morowali. Can you see any industrial estate? You show me any industrial build Polytech from the beginning? None. The intention is how to educate our people. The same here, Pak Marpaung. Jadi don't misunderstand about the issue, but one thing that I don't like playing the blame game. I don't like that. What I like is to meet, sit, and find the best solution for all the parties. I think that's Steve, what Pak Marpaung said. So we are open. We are open.
Great. Thank you, Pak Alex.
So not, okay, Pak Steve. Thank you.
I'm going to read out a quick question from Jack Anderson in the chat. So he's asking to Pak Alex, you mentioned that you're in the process of applying for the tailings permit. So my understanding is that you're applying for a deep sea tailings placement permit. How confident are you that this would be approved, and what are the alternatives?
Well, I think for this technicality, I think this is not a good place to discuss, right? But we certainly apply for deep sea tailing. What alternative, let's see later. But I am I cross my finger. I hope that the government, in the end of the day, will agree with it. Otherwise, if you say, let's say you build a dam, you're going to very expensive investment. And other countries doing deep sea tailing. Newman doing the same thing. So I see there's a why we cannot follow the normality. So I am in good hope that in the end of the day, the government of Indonesia will give a green light to go with our cathode lithium battery. That's my answer, Steve. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. We have one more question, 1 minute only for Jake Fraser. Do you want to unmute, Jake, and then ask your question?
Sure. Can you hear me, Stephen?
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. Firstly, thank you to all of the presenters today. Appreciate all your time, and it's been very interesting listening in. We've been following the Indonesian story quite closely for many years now, and I think with the development of the industry in terms of its scale, it's been obviously quite impressive. And this probably echoes a similar question to what Jack just asked in terms of the tailings optionalities we have. And I suppose, Stephen, from your experience with Vale for so long, what would you suggest would be viable alternatives? Like we're seeing, say, New Century proposed dry stacking in New Caledonia, which is obviously an additional capital expenditure, but it's something that they're looking to actively pursue there in terms of their streamline of the operation and higher consciousness around the environment.
Yeah, when you look at tailings options, every site will be different. Every site is unique.
Exactly.
So there can't be a general approach applied to everybody. So Vale is looking at a land-based tailings dam, but in that site, that's the only. There's no deep sea option in Vale's site. At the IMIP site in Morowali, there is a deep sea option. And there's also a high seismic zone in that area. So it's, it's a completely different story when you look at the Morowali site compared to the Vale site. But whatever options there are, all of them must be studied and then traded off.
Sure.
I don't think we can say that deep sea tailings is viable simply because it's done in other places. I think it needs to be assessed properly and a balanced decision come to on a site-by-site basis.
Sure, great. Thanks for your time.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for. Unfortunately, I apologize if anyone didn't get a chance to ask their questions. But I'll hand back to the MC to close out the seminar.
Sesi.
Pak Steve dan panitia mungkin ada satu terakhir mungkin.
Oke, boleh.
Baik. Regarding the questions related with the HPM price, I believe there are many people who asking about these issues. So lately, in the end of July, the government has already agreed through a meeting conducted by Pak Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, our Menko Maritim dan Investasi. And this meeting also attended by our Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources, Minister of Trade, Head of Investment Coordinating Board, the Vice Minister of State-owned Companies, and also the Director General from the Ministry of Industry. We already agreed that the miners and also the smelters must comply to HPM regulation, which regulated in Minister Regulation number 11 of 2020, I believe. And this HPM reference price must be used as the floor price for nickel ore transaction. So the government has already agreed on that regulation. So if both the miners and also the smelters do not comply to this regulation, we will give any punishment and also administrative sanction or something related to the regulation as regulated in the regulation. And this team, we call it the task force team, which led by Menko Maritim dan Investasi, will monitor and supervise all the implementation of this regulation from both the smelters and also the miners. So I believe there will be a better nickel market in the upcoming days from this regulation. And afterward, if there are any input or also suggestion to revise the formula or another aspect related to this pricing mechanism, we are very open to this advice and suggestions, so we can discuss, and also we can fix our formula if there are many problems comes from this, maybe from Pak Alex, also from the miners. So maybe that's it, Steve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Eko.
Steve,
Okay,
can I
again, back-
make a comment? Just short, Steve.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Pak Alex.
Actually, I didn't want to discuss this issue, but anyway, I have to reply because Pak Eko and others mentioned about benchmark. Actually, I didn't expect that we discuss this issue here. I just want to state like this. IMIP sent a letter to President and the Ministry that IMIP doesn't agree with benchmark and cannot do with benchmark. That's a letter from IMIP, black on white. From the forum, our smelters also, we send 2 times letter, black on white, that we cannot accept this formula. So I think that's the position that I stated this, but this is not my statement, but this is the statement of IMIP, then the statement of forum, the smelter forum. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Pak Alex. Oke, Pak Steven, mungkin kita sudah
Yes.
bisa mengakhiri ya.
Ya, baik.
Oke, baik Bapak Ibu sekalian, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, terima kasih banyak. Thank you very much for your participation and support on this webinar Indonesian Nickel Industry Outlook. And on behalf of the organizer, Indeks Komoditas Indonesia, together with Asia and Petromindo, we would like to deeply thank you to all panelists, to all speakers who have given the material presentations. Mr. Bapak Prihadi Santoso, Head of the Indonesia Processing and Refinery Industries Association, Ibu Meidi. Ibu Meidi is the Secretary General of the Indonesian Nickel Miners Association. Bapak Alexander Barus, terima kasih banyak Pak Alex. Tetap sehat selalu Pak Alex. Dan Bapak Eko Diputra dari Kementerian ESDM, Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Terima kasih banyak Pak Eko atas presentasinya dan juga pemaparannya pada hari ini. Dan jangan lupa kita minggu depan ada webinar series mengenai batu bara, yaitu Asian Coal Market Outlook. It will be on August 13. So we would like to thank you also to our sponsor, PT Geo Services, Sewa Tama Power Service Solution, PT Sukovindo, PT Surveyor Indonesia, PT Independent Assurance Service SCCI. We would like to thank you very much for your generous support to this event. And stay safe everyone. Selamat sore. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bu Desi.